That land over there is yours. You'll go back to it one day because your fight will prevail and you'll have your homes and your mosques back again because your cause is right and God is on your side.
The CIA played more of a quartermaster's role in the campaign. They stood back and let the Pakistan army do the direct training of the Mujahedin. This was something that the Pakistanis insisted upon.
It appears that at some point, according to Ahmed Rashid, the Pakistani ISI, the intelligence agency, introduced Osama bin Laden to the leaders of the Taliban. And he helped them financially, some people say to the tune of $3 million.
In those days, he was a young man who had committed himself to helping the Afghan Mujahedin liberate themselves from the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan. And he was doing a lot of good. He was bringing support and aid to the Mujahideen.
MI6 supplied small arms, they supplied money, principally they supplied radio equipment.
Once SIS was authorized to actively involve itself inside Afghanistan, obviously it was a very sensitive matter.
It's quite clear and apparent that MI6 was involved, to what degree we do not know, but certainly was involved to some extent with groups that were part of the al-Qaeda network.
What kind of sophisticated operations?
That I couldn't possibly tell you.
Osama bin Laden was an ally of the United States. He was killing Soviet soldiers. That's what we wanted.
Ali Mohammed calls the FBI, and the FBI intervenes to some extent. I don't think you have to be an agent who has worked, terrorism all their life to realize something is terribly amiss here.
The reason why the government didn't want Ali Mohammed to come to trial, which became clear with the benefit of hindsight, was that he was an operative and he was working through various intelligence agencies.
The notion that the United States had nothing in its possession prior to 9/11, that al-Qaeda had even thought about using a plane as a weapon, frankly, doesn't hold up.
Ali Mohammed helped train some of the people who later carried out the World Trade Center bombing, went back to Afghanistan and helped train a lot of the top leadership in al-Qaeda.
The idea was in 1995 when it was first mooted by Unocal, the American oil company, that the Taliban in southern Afghanistan would act like a security force for the building and the construction and looking after such a pipeline.
We had Osama bin Laden essentially cornered in Tora Bora, and for whatever reasons, we did not do what was necessary in order to ensure that he did not escape.
My take on it basically is the fact that there is some sort of a deal in place between the government of Pakistan and the United States.
According to the report, at least one, the FBI's best source in San Diego, suggested Bayoumi may be a Saudi intelligence officer. You can then say that Mr. Bayoumi, according to the report, did certainly help and assist the hijackers.
We cannot prove that high-ranking Saudi officials committed this atrocity. We know for a certainty that they were the terrorists, travel agents, who delivered them well-fed, well-trained, and well-equipped.
9/11 was not an intelligence failure. 9/11 was an intelligence success. It was supposed to happen.
September the 11th, 2001. Al-Qaeda carried out the worst terrorist attack in history. Almost 3,000 people died. But before Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden, there were other fanatics who killed civilians for their belief in a radical form of Islam. Men bound by a common ideology, in a movement known as the Muslim Brotherhood. While much about the Brotherhood remains shrouded in mystery, one thing is clear. It is the primary source and inspiration for today's most dangerous Muslim terrorist organizations, including Al-Qaeda.
The Muslim Brotherhood has been the ideological parent for virtually every radical Sunni terrorist movement today. Hamas, Islamic Jihad, al-Qaeda, all of these groups were spawned by the Muslim Brotherhood.
By the dawn of the Cold War, the Brotherhood had become a powerful influence in the Arab world. Evidence suggests that the CIA saw the Brotherhood as a potential ally in uniting Muslims against the Soviet Union. NASA expelled thousands of Brotherhood dissidents. They fled across the Middle East to countries like Saudi Arabia, Syria, Kuwait, and Jordan, where they were able to open new branches of the Brotherhood.
The Muslim Brotherhood used Saudi money and Saudi resources to build its own global network. And that global network also is what became the basic infrastructure for Osama bin Laden and his al-Qaeda. Sheikh Abdullah Abd Zam was key Palestinian Brotherhood member who was teaching Osama bin Laden.
Azam had taken Osama bin Laden under his wing in Saudi Arabia in the early 1980s. Bin Laden then followed his teacher to Peshawar, where he began working to develop what would become known as the base, or Al-Qaeda. When bin Laden was introduced to Zawahiri, he was intrigued by his violent vision of jihad.
Ayman Zawahiri is, for all practical purposes, the person who has provided the ideology for al-Qaeda.
One of Zawahiri's stratagems was the notion of suicide bombing. This relatively new concept for Sunni Muslims would engender future attacks around the world.
Zawahiri was the pioneer of imposing this technique among Sunnis in Egypt, this dreadful technique, which became the calling card for al-Qaeda. Zawahiri was the first to recognize the utility of having a martyr.
Zawahiri became bin Laden's right-hand man. While intelligence specialists insist the Brotherhood continues to attract members in the United States, the State Department does not include the Muslim Brotherhood in its official list of 41 terrorist groups.
On the 3rd of July 1979, President Jimmy Carter secretly authorized the CIA to spend $500,000 in covert support of the Afghan opposition. The modest beginning of a 10-year operation involving billions of dollars. With America's clandestine help, a ragtag army of Afghan tribesmen and farmers defeated one of the world's two superpowers.